Dhruv, it is wonderful to have you on FC PopCorn in association with MUBI.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I really enjoy my conversations with FC. So, pleasure's all mine.
Starting with a lot of pressure, but challenge accepted.
This episode of FC Popcorn is in association with MUBI, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Get a whole month free at mubi.com/filmcompanion30.
So we are here to sort of discuss, demystify, and break down the art of screenwriting. And I'm so glad to be doing that with you as someone who I can confidently say is one of my favorite writers. And I wanted to start by going through the life cycle of a single story, of a single sort of project from the very germ of the idea to the final sort of bound script that you are happy with. And I thought it would be very cool to, instead of looking at Little Things, which, as you know, happens to be a show I love, instead I thought we could look at I Love Thane, which is your segment of Modern Love Mumbai on Amazon Prime Video, the anthology, because, you know, that is sort of a single story. So let's start with that. How long did that take to write? And if I'm not mistaken, in terms of the journey of that story, they came to you with the story, right? It's not something that came from you. But just talk me through how long that took and sort of when they approached you, what was the brief?
So, they had sent us an email, all the directors, that on this day at this particular hour, we'll be sending you 6 articles and you guys have to shorten them. And I was traveling from Kochi to Bombay. And I thought I'll download all the articles and I'll read them during my flight. And I'm sure these guys are supremely busy. Hansal Mehta sir and Vishal Bhardwaj sir and everyone else, Alankrita, etc. And And by the time I was able to download the 3rd article, Vishal Bhardwaj sir had already said, मैं तो ये कर रहा हूँ, boss. And I'm like, what the hell? He's already read it. Then I went back to I wanted to read what did he select. And by then Hansal sir has already selected his. So mine was one of the last ones that kind of got zeroed. And I had wanted to do Alankrita's because I didn't want to do another young couple thing. But for some reason, maybe because they put Wi-Fi or whatever, my email didn't get sent and it was still in the drafts. And I was very confident, ये तो मुझे मिल जाएगा. So by the time I landed in Bombay, I was like, अच्छा ये नहीं मिला मुझे. So anyway, so
it wasn't that they stereotyped you and said, let's give the young love story to you. It was Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it was the Wi-Fi.
The universe had other plans.
Yeah. But that is what they were going for. Yeah. For each and every director. And they were kind of correct, the Nandi sisters, that they were like, yeah, we knew that you guys are going to pick this one. I was like, no, but I wanted that one. But never mind. So in this case, you get the text, you read it. And I personally couldn't relate to it because I felt it was very 2015, just when Tinder was coming into the pop culture. So it took me a long time to kind of take the whole Tinder aspect of it out and start seeing it with a fresh pair of eyes, you know. And I struggled with it because I kept thinking that this has to be a young, cool, very urban, very Bombay. I wanted to do कि यार मुझे बॉम्बे में लव स्टोरी कैसे होता है यंग लोगों का. I want to show the anti-social, I want to show the subcos and all. So I was building this strange pressure to have this sort of this young energy, you know, to infuse the story with this young energy, which I thought wasn't the right approach. Because what I wasn't doing was that I didn't really see the story for what it could be, but what I wanted to do with it, you know. And then I got a co-writer on board, Nupur. And then it just came to me one day that actually she's not probably looking for love. She's looking for authenticity. So in a case like this one where you have something that you have to adapt, maybe it's not just about the core conflict. It's about what do you personally relate with, you know, here. Like what is this relationship that you can form with this story and not just keep it in this sense of, in this detached manner. इसको ये चाहिए तो मैं इसको ऐसे करके दिखा दूंगा. But you have to approach it with a sense of emotion, with a sense of with this groundedness, you know. So yeah, and that takes a while because first you have to get rid of your ego. Second thing you have to get rid of is the rules of storytelling, which can be really, really horrible at times. And then third thing, you start seeing it for what it is, you know, much like your relationship with your close friends or family or partners. Or
And did you have full freedom to play with the text and adapt it freely, or was there sort of a line as
No,
to
there was complete freedom.
okay, so you could change it.
Yeah. Which is, I think, the good thing about the show in general, that all 6 of them have a distinct personalities, and that's credit to the producers for that.
No, it really is one of my favorite anthologies. I know anthologies are a bit of a bad word now because we've seen so many of them, but that is one of my favorites because it really felt like different filmmakers and different perspectives on love. But I wanted to ask you something which I thought was very interesting about I Love Thane. One of the reasons I liked it, and I want to know if that's what you were talking about, was if you watch it, it doesn't feel like a love story between two people. It's Saiba's story, and Path is someone who sort of happens to her. So was that something that you had in your mind all along, or did that happen at some point where you said, no, it is about her journey, and then the person she meets, but it's always her perspective. She's always...
Well, that actually came from the modern love article, that wo uska hi kahani tha. But yeah, this thing was intentional, that she has to meet someone who is different from her sort of Tinder radar.
Yeah.
That she wouldn't ever swipe right for him. And it took her this travel time of 1 hour, 1.5 hours to Thane to find someone who she could share a certain set of values and ideas, which were probably not there with other guys who she would have swiped right for. But yeah, it was intentional that isko, because it's a 40-minute story, and I thought that it is a love story at the end of the day also. So it's important that maybe you see it from one person's point of view, so that you kind of feel really happy for her. So that energy is focused.
Well, you really do feel for her. That is my favorite of the anthology, and you really, really do fall in love with her, and you just want to sort of protect her. So just talk me through how long it took to write and what the journey was between you and your co-writer to getting to that first draft.
So I think it took us 3 months. It seems long. Strange. But sometimes you write scripts very fast, and sometimes they take very long. And which is the good thing about this profession. And sometimes it's annoying that you feel it's not in your control. Unless and until I think you're a seasoned writer, then I think you can just churn out material. But for me, I take too long at times to kind of understand what am I really getting at, because I need to be very clear about that. So when it comes to the stages of this, first is to try and be faithful to this, to the grammar of the material that is in front of you, to not kind of change it too much. Again, to not infuse it with your own sense of ego. So that sort of churning is very important, and that sort of letting go. And then you make it so much about the character that the latter half of the screenwriting process is just you taking step back and then just letting the character surprise you, But one thing that I kept doing constantly with this particular episode was that I spoke to a lot of landscape designers, and I spoke to a lot of urban architects and researchers, because I wanted to, again, root it to this city. So small things like this idea of her wearing gajra came from a landscape designer, because she does this, and there were multiple examples of this. Abhi mere se dimag mein nahi aa raha, but that came. This idea of with time, the landscape of a place changes.
Yeah.
That too came from a girl who is doing her master's in landscape designing, because in graduation they teach you some, and then in masters this is the main thing, how time actually affects a landscape. So it was very research heavy, but then the skill is to how to take away the research out of it and present it as a human story, which is alive and bubbling and not seeming ke maine padha hai iske bare mein, ab tum dekho.
Yeah.
You're
not trying to show off your research.
Yeah, and then it gets very this theme and academic based. One could have taken that turn of talking about how we don't care for our cities and how we have not created cities ever since the Britishers left, in that sense.
But that becomes a different story.
It becomes a different story, and it is not the story. And that is when you kind of don't let your ego come in the way, because you can have a political thing to say, and you can say it that I think Path says it also, that he had to struggle really hard to convince the the committee to make a park
Yeah.
and not a mall. But again, it has to be in the universe of the storytelling. Otherwise, it feels very jarring, man.
Yeah. It feels like you're pressing pause on your story to sort of talk to the audience.
Yeah. And there is a moment like that when the two women look at each other, but I just wanted that to be.
I love that moment.
So
when they look at each other to recognize that they're on dates with the shittiest
yeah,
man.
yeah. And they can't hear each other, but they know exactly, because every time I go to write in different cafes, I see so many, and more in Powai than anywhere else. I just see so many of these, corporate couples, and first time they're meeting, and you can see that they're very nervous. And
So there is an I Love Powai sequel that could be in the works.
well, you never know. Yeah.